that time of the morning when we take a look at the stories making the front pages of today's international newspapers. I'm joined not by the world's most powerful man, but by the political analyst Joseph Tanquo for that stroll through the headlines, as is our custom. Very good morning to you.
Thank you. Good morning.
OK, let's start first with the Nigerian newspaper This Day. Now, we've been following this story. In fact, we've been headlining it in our bulletin. And it's basically an attempt to stop Muhammadu Buhari, there it is on the screen, from actually being sworn in. Or is it a case of sour? Started?
Yes, I think it's a matter of sour grapes. A group called the Advocacy for Societal Rights Advancement and Development Initiative put in a lawsuit on Tuesday saying that he didn't meet the criteria for standing for the presidency, and they want to stop the Chief Justice from swearing him in. I mean, it's 2 days or 3 days to the swearing in of the president, and I don't see how far this is going to go.
But it does beg the question, why not actually raise the criticism, the concern, from the very beginning, when Muhammadu Buhari had thrown his hat into the ring and said, I want to stand as president, because surely it would have had a bit more clout then.
Yes, they did try. 10 attempts were made.
10 attempts?
10 attempts were made, and they were thrown out. Apparently, the complaint is that he doesn't have a GCSE certificate and all that. But the man rose to become a general in the army and a former military leader. So that argument goes through the window. I think it's a matter of some interest groups trying to stop him getting there, because they believe that when he gets in there, he's going to clean the house.
Right. But well, I suppose in a curious way, you have to admire their persistence. But if 10 attempts have already been kicked into the dust, then why should this one succeed?
Well, I hope it doesn't, because the country needs to go forward.
Sure. OK, then. Let's move on now to The Age, which is the Australian newspaper. An interesting story here. They're claiming that the family of a notorious IS fighter, in fact, wants to come home. And that's put the Australian authorities in a little bit of a quandary, hasn't it?
Yes, the fighter's called Khalif Sharif. He's a notorious ISIS fighter whose son paraded around with a severed head of a person who had been beheaded.
I think he actually photographed him and distributed the picture.
Yeah, on the social media. And this comes to the question about of citizenship. There's a clamour saying that now those who have dual citizenship should be stripped of the Australian nationality if they go on to fight for ISIS. And this family, made up of 5 kids and parents, 2 parents, are trying as much as possible to come back. But then it's going to be a problem now. How do they treat the children when they come back? Are they going to be seen as being threats, potential threats? Another school of thought is saying that these children are victims of their parents' manipulation by taking them over there, and they didn't have the status or the legal status to stand up towards them.
And that's the point as well, because she was following her husband's orders, so to speak. If he was the most powerful figure in the household, then why should she herself be jailed if she hasn't actually been involved in any terrorist activities?
Well, it was said that she's an adult, so she'll be able to discern between what's wrong and what's right, and she's responsible for her actions because she's above the age of 16 or 18. So therefore, she should be liable for her own actions. But there's the children, who have been caught up in this problem, which is the problem.
But I suppose there's also the argument as well that it's for returning for former IS supporters who are returning. In a curious way, you need to have them back home so that you can tap them for information. So if you jail them, then it might be counterproductive.
Yes.
They might withhold the information, so that's a very powerful bargaining tool.
Yes, it's true. And when they come in and debrief them, you're able to know how ISIS operates and what other areas they want to attack.
Sure.
So they become a source of very vital information.
Yeah, because it does appear as if she's actually fallen out of love with the whole thing, hence this desperate plea to get back. Moving on to the Wall Street Journal Asia, and the headline, Nursing home fire puts focus on elderly care in China. So that's really the devastation that's been left behind, that photograph in the front page. But this is quite an interesting piece, really, about China's priorities, the emphasis on actually driving forward an industrial revolution, being an economic superpower. But somewhere along the line, the elderly get left behind.
Yes, this is a society which believes in the Confucius beliefs that the elderly should be catered for and are well respected. And this fire, which happened in the Henan province, saw 30 people killed. And And it's said that these elderly people in the society of China now, which represent 10% of the population, are basically being left behind. And that's a generation who saw farming in the 1950s and the confusion of the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s.
Well, they created the foundations of the current success.
Yes. So they are said to be being left behind because many of the youth today are more engrossed in their own well-being than the well-being of their parents and the elders in society. And they believe that it's against the principles of the foundations of the Chinese society, where the elders are revered and given that respect in society.
But this whole desire for China to actually assert itself, again alluded to with the Wall Street Journal Asia, the story on that front page as well, China lays out its plans for harder military stand. And it's not just in terms of building up its air power, its troop power, but particularly the naval strategy.
Yes, China is doing this in response to the American support now of Japan, and China's desire to, expand economically within that area. And there's going to be a meeting called the Shangri-La Dialogue of Security Conference, where these military leaders military men will meet to discuss, military issues in the region. And China is said to be on basically now saying that they would not tolerate any so-called aggression towards them, and they would attack if attacked, and and they're coming up with some sort of rhetoric whereby they said they said that they are going to engage in active defense and maritime military struggle. These sort of jargons coming out, reminding us of the era of the Cold War and the march towards...
Except it's being played out in a different neck of the woods, a different block.
Yeah.
OK, the Wall Street Journal Europe, a bit frightening, actually. Einstein once said that if the bees have gone, effectively, we've all had it, bees' health will get more study in Europe.
Yeah, well, there's
the bees are under threat.
Yeah, there's been a what do you call it? The EU has done a U-turn on an importation of an insecticide.
It's basically the insecticides. Are they harming the bee population?
Well, yes, but there was a belief that other school of thought are saying that it's the virus or parasites or weather which is causing the loss of the bees. And bees play a very great role in the environment. They pollinate the crops and the overall ecosystem. They help from it dying off. So, if the bees are not around, then it's going to be a problem. Right,
so Einstein was right. If the bees aren't here, we've had it.
We are finished.
Oh dear, we'll keep the bees coming in. Let's move on because time is running fairly tight. I'd actually like to move on to the Moscow Times, in fact, but the online version of this paper, and it revolves around the French actor Gérard Depardieu. Now, it says here in the headline, hopefully we'll get the graphic, but it says Gérard Depardieu, in quotes, ready to die for new homeland Russia. And it's quite interesting how somebody who was an institution of French theatre and cinema has gone to Russia and is pretty much reinventing himself, as good as denouncing his French nationality. I don't feel French anymore.
Yes, because he's not paying the amount of taxes he was asked to pay under the president. The president of France. They basically...
François Hollande.
Yeah, François Hollande, yes. They've basically... he's basically gone to Russia. He went in 2013, was given citizenship by President... Putin, and therefore he says he's now a Russian and doesn't feel French anymore. Yeah. He's now adhered to the Russian way of life by getting into a sitcom called Zaitsev
Plus One.
Yes. And he's now joined up with a luxury watchmaker, Kostov, to produce a line called Proud to be Russian. And he's a man...
It doesn't actually say whether he speaks Russian, though. I suppose he must speak some Russian if he stars in a Russian soap opera.
Maybe he's gone through some lessons to get himself polished up in Russian. But he's said to be a prolific drinker of 14 bottles of wine a day, and he says he's not scared to die. And I think he's a very hard man because he says Russians are great because they are ready to die.